Good morning, guys and gals. Froggy here. This is my new Husqvarna 3200 pressure washer, and I'm going to show you how to start it up, first start up. I did another video on assembling it, so if you need help with doing the assembly, go to Froggy's garage and search the videos for Husqvarna 3200, and you'll find the other video. Anyway, first thing that was kind of unusual to me is it has two oil fill ports, one there and same exact thing, it's the same dipstick over there. So I scratched my head a little bit. I said, why is that? And I did a little detective work, and I think it's mainly because this engine is used on many different applications and might be installed inside something that has blockage, and it's just easier for the engine manufacturer to put the same thing on both sides rather than make two separate casings like this. So you can put the oil in on either side, and I like to, it comes with an oil can. This is 30 weight, and of course it doesn't say how much oil this is. It should be a quart, but you know, these days we have liters. Whoops, I knew that was going to happen, but it didn't do any damage. So I think that this is more than enough to fill the crankcase. So you want to pour in about a half at a time, and then like a little more, a little more, a little more, until you get a reading on the dipstick. Okay, I'm going to do that. Focus. The dipstick has high, which is right in the dead center of your screen, and low, which is now in the dead center of your screen. And I put it about halfway. And actually this container is about a half a liter or 16 ounces. Yeah, and some extremely fine print there. It tells you there how much it is. So I used about between 2/3 and 3/4, not counting what I spilled out, which wasn't much. So you don't put the whole, well, you could probably get away with putting the whole thing in, and it wouldn't be over the top. But don't fill it so that you've got like a total full dipstick. You might end up blowing some oil by and having it come out in the air filter or someplace where you don't want it. Okay? Now let's put some gas in. Okay, gas kind of obvious, goes there. Just use unleaded. 89 is fine. There's no need to go with high test, obviously. This is not a high compression motor. Although the cap was a little tricky to get back on, isn't it? Come on. There it is. All right, it's probably one of these EPA, you don't want to, Green New Deal, don't want to kill the planet with a little bit of fumes, so it's probably a very tight cap. Anyway, now we're going to hook up water and start it up. So your garden hose goes right there, and I'm assuming this probably has one of those cheap plastic washers. You might want to replace that with a good real rubber washer, but if you get a little leak here, it's not going to matter. You're washing the deck or washing the car or something anyway, so that's not going to matter. And this is your outlet for your high pressure. And that's the wand. That's the tip over there, attaches to the wand, and here's the hose. So let's put the hose on. It should be pretty obvious how this goes together, but I'll give you a little brief recap. Either end of the hose goes here, and the other end goes here. They're the same fittings on both ends. doesn't matter. The wand attaches here, and that's a quick disconnect here for the head. The head is an adjustable head, which, you know, back in the old days, you had a bunch of heads in a rack up there, and you had to change them using the quick disconnect, which was not any big deal. This is supposed to be an improvement. If you like the old heads, I think the old heads would still attach to that right there. But we're going to try this out and see how we like it. I like to put a little silicone on each one of these connections and the O-rings so they slide together nice and maybe they don't leak as much as they would otherwise. I just noticed on this quick disconnect, make sure you snap it back so it's like all the way up to there. You might have to push it a little bit to snap it back to there. Otherwise, if it's like looks like that, it's not all the way on. It's got to be like that. Okay, let's turn the water on. I told you that cheap plastic washer would leak, didn't I? Anyway, now we got gas, we got oil, we've got water. Please, please, always have the water pressurized to your machine before you run the machine. Otherwise, you could burn the pump out or at least maybe damage it a little bit if you're running it dry. Water pump is not meant to run dry. Okay? Now, this is a newer Husqvarna pressure washer than what I had. The old one had a choke that was an automatic choke, which was a big mistake by this company. It never worked very well at all. And they know it. They probably won't admit it, but they know it. Now this has a manual choke. It has a manual, I think this is going to be a manual engine speed control, which is better than the other one ran flat out all the time, which was okay, I mean, but this should be better. You can somewhat control your pressure by running this down slower or faster. This is where you put the detergent, or you can you don't have to use detergent. You can just use high pressure water, or you can use a device which I have in some of my other videos, which is made for car washing specifically. And I like that. I'm just show it to you briefly. This is what I like for car washing, because good car wash soap is not cheap, and that one will just blow through your detergent pretty fast and furious. And this one you can control. It has a couple of controls on it here and here, so that you don't use up so much car wash soap. You don't need to use a ton of it, but that's a whole other video, and I have done videos on this before, so I'm not going to include much of it except what I just said. Okay, so starting this beast. There we go. So we've already done all this up above. I showed it to you. Starting, turn the electrical switch on so that your this doesn't mean electrical plugged into the wall. It means your electric spark will go to the spark plug. Turn the throttle to fast. So that's two things we have on this machine. The choke on all the way, and then once it starts, you start feathering the choke back, and eventually after a few seconds, or probably not even a minute, you put the choke all the way off. If there's a fuel valve shut off, you turn the fuel on, and I'm not sure on that. Let's look around a little bit on this one. These are general directions. I'm going to go to the specific owner's manual now. All right, here are your instructions from the specific to this pressure washer. Engine switch on, fuel switch to on. So I'm not sure if that's a throttle or a fuel shut off. It could be both. choke to on, pull the starting cord until you feel resistance, and then pull fast. And once the engine starts, you gradually move the choke off. And then we'll play around with the, see if that's a throttle or not. Okay? Let's go. So, choke to the left, they have a little arrow there for you. Fuel on to the right. Left to the right. And let's pull. I'm going to have to use two hands. This is, so you pull it until you feel some resistance, then you pull it fast. Maybe I can do this with one hand on the camera and one hand on that. And I like to put my foot down there just to brace it a little bit. Let's try this just a couple of times. See if it starts up. Ready? And the recoil can be sharp, and it could pull this out of your hand, which you just did. So close your fingers and hold it. Probably I'm filling up the fuel lines by pulling this a few times. I felt a little something there. All right, I'm going to use two hands. Well, Froggy's Honest Videos, I never leave the bloopers out. I forgot to turn the power switch on. So now the power switch is to the on position. Let's try that again. And I will go back to full choke and full throttle. I'll one hand this. And let's see. What do you think? All right, gonna need two hands. Okay, so it's not running now, but we got it running. So here's what you have to do. Do not have the water pressurizing the water pump when you're trying to start the engine. You should have it hooked up, and you should open the hose either by pulling the trigger. So you can pull the trigger on this. I have a little bungee cord that holds it back so that I don't have to use any hands. I can just open the trigger that way. Or you can just leave this connection off. But then if you leave it off, you're going to get wet when you try to attach it. So it's not an ideal design, I guess. I would just have this all hooked up and figure out some kind of a way to pull that trigger. When you pull the trigger, then the water is allowed to flow through the pump, and while it's not binding up the pump while you're trying to start the engine, that just puts extra compression or extra resistance, not really compression, it's resistance on the engine, so that's not a good thing when you're trying to pull it over with your hand and start the engine. The other thing is give it as quick a pull as you can once you take the resistance out of the cord. Pull it quick so you can spin it over faster. It's more likely to start than if you spin it over slowly. You give it a couple of pulls. If it doesn't start, run the choke the other way. Pulls, doesn't start, run the choke back. You can play the choke back and forth, okay, till you get it going. This is not a throttle, it's just a fuel on off valve. So leave the fuel on all the way, but play with the choke and then it should start up okay. I'm going to try a restart in a few minutes and I will show you how that goes. Okay, we got the next car here to get washed, and mainly video about the pressure washer. I'm going to try and start it. Should be still warmed up. Okay, once you've run a pressure washer, it's hot or warmed up for, at least an hour to 2 hours, I would say. So it shouldn't need very much choke. I have got a little bit of water running out the wand. I don't know if that's enough to take the pressure off the water pump, but we'll try it. If it feels like it's really hard, then I'll have to unscrew some more. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to kind of shout from the cloud. It was 2 or 3 pulls and it started up. I put the choke about half. Now the choke I'm going all the way off, but it's running. And yeah,